Just the easy topic, eh? Yes. First tell me what the expectation is, then I'll tell you what I will do. What exactly? 50 topics, mein, what do you think? I'm not going to revise the entire economics. So what are we going to do here? Or what are you expecting? You tell me first. Focus topics as in? So right now what you have read, you tell me that. GDP. You know the changes in GDP methodology. See, I'll tell you what exactly first I'll draw the entire domain, how the preparation has to go, and what things I'm going to focus on in these 2-3 classes. Whatever topics I'm able to explain, and those topics which I'm not able to explain, I'm going to give in the form of notes as part of this PPT only till the last class. But what exactly the domain is going to be. Sorry. Based on, we're talking about only prelims. Based on our PYQ analysis, we find out there are 3 sections from where the questions are asked, and the mixture of questions from different sections has completely changed. It was something in 11 to 15, changed to in 15 to 20, and then now 20 to 25 is completely different. So we're going to catch the latest pattern of 20 to 25. Problem is most of our preparation and the strategy is stuck in 11 to 15. This is why we find a mismatch, and this is why we find the number of marks getting reduced, because you keep on reading one thing but the question is somewhere else. And for reading that somewhere else you require multiple sources, the effort is huge, the supply of content is less, and this is why the preparation is absent and the marks don't show. This is only in prelims, not in mains. Mains mein, it's very easy that whatever the syllabus is, one by one topic is what the question they ask. The challenge there is how do you write an answer to it. The challenge there is not the question, the challenge is the answer. What is challenge here is the question itself. Now what exactly is the domain? The first thing that comes here is, we talk about how the economy works. Now this used to be the most asked topic, most asked things. Right from 11 to 15, maximum question used to come from here. Now what are the topics that are covered here is how the economy works. We talk about growth and development, that is the basics of GDP. We talk about basics of money and inflation. The external sector, balance of payment, exchange rate, fiscal policy, and to some extent banking and financial markets. This is what our predominant preparation has been. This is what is how any economy works, the basics of that economy. You talk about interest rates, you talk about trade, you talk about government taxation, budget, what is capital account, what is current account, what is revenue account. Now this particular paradigm is stage 1 of preparation, and if you are lucky in some years, say for example last year, there were 4 or 5 questions that came from this section. There were questions on fiscal policy, that is the concept of deficits, concept of the capital head of the budget. There were questions from financial market. Largely paper was from these 2 sections. This is the latest addition which has happened in the last few years. This is one part of preparation where we have a basics of economics, how any economy works. But problem is that this section used to be asked from 11 to 15, and sometimes they've asked it in some sporadic years from 15 to 20 and 20 to 25. For example, 25 may have asked questions here. The second part is where the most of the paper lies, is where we talk about the Indian economy. In this we talk about various sectors. We talk about agriculture, cropping pattern, we talk about agriculture sector policy, we talk about the various schemes, performance of industry, where we talk about various resources, energy generation, coal, electricity, so many different perspectives to that. We talk about regulation of these resources and the policy dynamics. Then we have some questions related to services, questions related to infrastructure, schemes related to rural development, and 2 most specific schemes is mostly on social security, where we talk about social protection and social security, especially welfare schemes. Problem is our preparation is here, the paper is here. These topics have two dimensions. What these dimensions are: one is the static part, where you understand the basics of it, what all the resources India has, where it has the resources, what else production pattern, rice, wheat, different crops, livestock sector, the Rashtriya Gokul Mission, it talks about the industrial production, whether IIP is released by whom, what is the index of 8 core industries, all those related concepts. And the second is the dynamic part, which is mostly related to current affairs. Talk about Indian banking also. Now 11 to 15, this is what the pattern was. 15 to 20, this is where the pattern was. And 20 to 25, this is what the pattern has been. Some questions here, some questions here, but mostly the questions are turning up from this end. So our problem in handling the questions is not that the question was difficult. The problem in handling the question is that these topics have been missed out. So in these 3-4 classes, I'm going to give you maximum content from newspapers and the basics of these sections. We are not going to talk about much in detail about these sections. Macroeconomics already through the classes, quick revision classes, economic survey classes, we've done most of it. Whatever would be the dynamic portion, I'll definitely discuss it here. For example, 16 Finance Commission, I can talk here. GST changes, I can talk here. Money related concepts, which are the new developments, I can talk here. The most part which will be here also, I have a basic static content. And I have a dynamic content also, which is related to the news. This dynamic content is what I'm going to cover mostly in these 3 classes. Would be divided in 4 sections. Today I'm going to try and cover the GDP section, mostly the methodology changes in GDP and measurement of development, including some new measures of development of poverty. We have time left. I'll discuss about the role of RBI, how does RBI transfer surplus, how does RBI earn income, the new forms of currency, whether it is the CBDC retail, CBDC wholesale, the stable coins and how exactly stable coins have become relevant. After stable coins, we talk about the regulation of banking. So based on this particular theme, the topics which I've selected mostly would be, there would be 4 classes, mostly 3 or 4, mostly content also I'll give. Is first, I'm going to talk about concepts related to GDP. Second is we'll talk about the new developments in money. Talk about majorly RBI and its regulation of banking, especially cooperative banks and NBFC. Third section, I'm going to give you information on agriculture related developments. This is something which is a very important sector for most of the prelims questions, where they talk about commodities, we talk about policies, for example, ethanol production, they can talk about maize, they can talk about soya bean, they can talk about number of products which were in news. The fourth thing we'll talk about here is the industry, resources, and finally, the trade related developments that had happened in 1 year. All of the dynamic portions we'll discuss. We'll not talk about the basics of GDP, that is what is growth or why exactly GDP, meaning of GDP. Static portion I'm not going to discuss in any of this. Dynamic portions, changes in GDP and how exactly GDP is measured, that is what I'll take up so that you understand the meaning. This is also important for mains because last time they made the changes in GDP, they had asked a full-fledged mains question in GDP. What are the changes? Similar changes will make sense once you understand the broad idea what has happened. Money, new forms of money, stable coins, CBDC, RBI regulation, RBI surplus transfer, agriculture, any related development. There are 4 or 5 themes picked up. One is the theme of fertilizer, the other is the theme of cropping patterns, especially the crops which have mostly been news. The consumption patterns in agriculture, how they have been changing, and different policies which government has brought in agriculture. Industry policy, we'll talk about the resources here, what are major minerals, minor minerals, critical minerals, the production patterns of these, and also certain regulation related things in industry. Trade, the commodity trade, especially the trade deals which are happening and what is the component of those trade deals. This is the broader idea. I'm not going to discuss the basics of this. Basics I'll tell you only when it has a dynamic portion attached to it. Most of the contents I'll try to explain it in the class. The things which are not possible in the class, these topics which I have selected, I'm going to give you notes from the roughly 1.5 year newspapers which I have collected. So these notes are not something which are already available. This is from regular newspaper reading. Because when these dynamic questions of current affairs show up, or even this dynamic portions of air, this is mostly covered in the newspaper. Magazines can cover some part of it, PT 365 or even the current affair magazines, but they can't cover the entirety of it. So if maize production pattern is increasing, India is producing more ethanol from maize as compared to coming from sugarcane. These are smaller facts which are mostly coming in some articles. This you will not find in a compilation. This is why these 4 classes, 4 classes and material is strictly coming from newspaper reading only. There would be some overlap definitely with current affairs, but not a lot of it. This is what these 3 classes I'm going to discuss the topics. Is it making sense? What is missed out in preparation, which then becomes a problem in the exam, is that these portions, the dynamic sections, we miss out. We most of the times focus on the basics of this, but the basics of this, the paper is not always there. It's very less in the last 10 years the paper has been here. Less questions here, most questions this, and the dynamic portions of Indian economy. Is it making sense how exactly we are going to cover and what topics we are going to cover? Now the first topic here is the changes in GDP methodology. You know how GDP is measured in the country? Any idea what GDP changes have been introduced? You know that there have been changes? Yes. First, we have nominal year or nominal GDP, that is quantity current into price current. Then we have the concept of real GDP, that is quantity current into price base or price constant. The year which we choose this price to be constant, this is what is called as the base year. Now the question is, what exactly are the things that go in selection of the base year? Why? Any particular reason why we need average values in the year? First, why do we need to measure real GDP? Because when I calculate the percentage growth, I can have only change in prices, or most of the time the growth might change because there is change in prices. In order to remove the impact, we make the price constant. When we make the price constant, we'll have to select a particular year where the prices are average, because if you pick a price where the prices are too high or the prices are too low, I can have a problem of base effect. When I choose high prices, the percentage will show me a low figure. When I choose a low price, the percentage will show me a high figure. That means first I'll have to remove the impact of base effect. I'll choose a year of this. Second, this reason why we select a base year which is closer, whatever current year you have selected quantity, you should have that quantity being reflected in that price also. For example, in the year 2025, you have a subscription model for AI, or you have a particular mobile phone which was actually not available in 2011. Then how will you find the base price or constant price for these items? The items which you have today, the quantity which you have today, should also have a price in the year which you are selecting as base year. Then you have a price constant. This is why I can't choose a year which is a very significant gap. We are going to choose a year which is nearby, say 2022 or 23, so that most of the products that are available in 2025 are also available in 2023, which means I should be able to have a price for the product which I am looking for. If you don't have the price for the product you are looking for that particular products or that particular sector, you will not be able to calculate the real GDP. If the mobile phone was absent in 2011, how will you calculate the base price of the mobile phone then? This mobile phone has a more likelihood of being present in the year 2022-23. So automatically your price base exists in 2022-23. This is why a closer year, and closer year also I have to select a year which has this prices. Average prices, not too high, too low. Based on this particular observation, the year which the government has selected as the base year is now 22 and 23. That's the first major change that has been done. What are the other changes that have been introduced? Is the meaning of base year clear? And how changes have been brought into 22-23? What are the other changes that have been introduced? What about weights? What weights? Weights, this is CPI. What weights do you need here? See, 2-3 things I'll tell you so that you understand the changes. I'll tell you the basic first. How is GDP calculated? How do we calculate the GDP? The GDP measures what exactly is the total output that is produced. Whenever the output is produced, income has been generated. Whenever output has been produced, I can count the products, value added method, or I can count the money spent on buying the products. This is what the idea is. Whenever output is produced, money has been spent on producing value added. Money has been given to generate income. That is, income was generated to produce the product. And whenever the output has been produced, someone has bought that particular output. In India, we don't use income method because estimation of income is quite difficult. Income method counts what? It counts what exactly is the compensation received by employee. It counts what is the interest received, what is rent and royalty, and finally it counts the profit, also mixed income of self-employed. In India, we don't have data sources for income method. The Ministry of Stats and Program Implementation this year has said that we are going to have a national survey for income estimation. But this is still planned for this year. We don't have any mechanism to calculate the income of the country, or sorry, GDP of the country from income method. What we do is, we do the gross value added method and we do the expenditure method. What has changed in this methodology mostly is, how do we calculate the expenditure done by different actors? We have added a number of sources for estimating this expenditure. And the second major change we have done is the nominal GDP. How do we convert the nominal into real? That means what is the choice of deflator we have? We have changed this methodology for some sectors. These are the two major methodology changes post the change of base year. What has changed? The sources have been added, and tell you few more things have been changed, and the deflator method has changed. These are the two mechanisms. The third major change that has been done is GDP, which is measured for a particular quarter. The methodology was different from GDP measured annually. So I made changes to quarterly measurement of GDP so that these two numbers become closer. The methodology for GDP estimation for a quarter of a GDP are different from methods of GDP estimation for an annual GDP. I have tried to make the methodology more precise so that the numbers don't need a larger adjustment. These are the three broader changes that have been introduced. Working on sources for calculating expenditure, choosing deflators, and bringing the quarterly GDP in line with annual GDP by improving the methodology how it is done. We made certain methodology changes. These methodology changes, the technicality part is something you don't have to understand. You just have to understand what has been done so that you're in a position to write an answer or pick the right answer for prelims. Are these three making sense? Now, what are the changes in expenditure? First, how do we measure the GDP from the expenditure method? What are we trying to do from the expenditure method? We try to understand whatever the output has been produced, on this output, someone has spent money in order to buy this output. Who all have spent money? Now understand these components carefully, then only the changes will make sense. Whatever has been produced, final goods and services has been produced, I need to know who has bought these services or who has spent money on these services. What are the different types of goods that can be produced? Final goods and services. They could be either consumer goods or they can be capital goods. Now first, the money can be spent by the household. Now household, when it is spending money, first what do we mean by the household? Household category includes two things. First, the household includes all the people living within the same household having one roof and a common place of cooking. Plus, it also includes those production units which are unincorporated. Unincorporated enterprises are those where people do not register themselves as a separate firm and are still producing something. For example, a person is taking tuitions from his own home. Now he is producing services, but has he registered himself as a firm? The answer is no. It is a unincorporated enterprise. Whenever the household wants to start doing production, they have to establish a separate firm, which is a legal entity. When the household does not do this, the household is unincorporated enterprise. That means it is not just consuming, it is also producing. Producing by not creating a new firm, which means according to the national accounting standards in India, household is not just responsible for consumption, it can also be responsible for someone opening a tuition, or someone in their own home has started selling goods by opening up a shop. They did not register themselves somewhere. Are they producing a service of delivering retail trade? Number of services can be delivered from home. Someone working unincorporated enterprise, they are delivering cooking services to different households. They are going to someone else's house to clean. Are they delivering services? They all are unincorporated enterprises which do not have a registration of a firm. They can be both, so that means household can both consume and household can also. In order to better capture this expenditure data, the government said we will have an annual survey of unincorporated enterprises. The government has said the annual survey for unincorporated enterprise we are going to conduct so that we are able to better capture what they are doing. Second way of doing it is, I am going to capture their data from periodic labor force survey. For the first time they have said, when anyone in the household is delivering, say, driving services, cleaning services, cooking services, all the people who are working in the care economy, they are delivering goods. I will now try to find out how much they will produce by using this data. Earlier there was no data point to capture these domestic workers. We had to do it, but there was no data point for it. For gig workers, for domestic workers, which are all unincorporated enterprises, we are going to add data from this. This is the major change which they have done, that unincorporated enterprises we are going to have a survey, and rest data we are going to estimate from periodic labor force survey. Now how exactly or what exactly things are added? Now actors are different. First actor is household, which is consumption plus the unincorporated enterprise. The second is firm. The third is government. And fourth is exports. These are the four players who spend money in your economy, in your production. We also have to remove the imports. First, why do we remove the imports? Why do we remove the imports? So, don't consider them. Why do we remove them? When are they counted? Whenever these three people will spend money in my economy, I don't have a mechanism to separate domestic expenditure from import expenditure. So the imports and domestic expenditure were included in all the terms. When the household said I consumed 1 lakh rupees in this year, they did not tell me how much on domestic production and how much on imported production. Firm said I bought 2 machines. I don't know one machine was outside or 2 machines from were outside. Since they are making expenditure on both domestic and imports, I will have to separately remove the imports. Is this making sense? The household, when they made an expenditure, let us assume the people are doing public or the private final consumption expenditure. They said private final expenditure we have done on 10 lakh rupees. How do I know how much was done on domestic production and how much was done on imports? I don't have a mechanism to differentiate between the two. I don't have mechanisms to ask them two different questions. How much did you spend on imports? Otherwise also they'll not be able to tell. But at the end of the day, who will buy imports in my country? They will be household, firm and. So when the total expenditure had both, I have to now remove, because import was not something which was produced in my own country. Is this making sense? Now, how do we calculate this and what changes have been made? First, what are the total expenditures done? The first type of an expenditure is what is called as private final consumption expenditure. Major changes have been introduced to better capture this only. Private final consumption expenditure is the expenditure done by the household on consumer goods. If a car has been produced, household will buy that car. How much that they spend on buying the car will be added in. Now my problem is people don't report the true number how much they have spent. So what I can instead do is I can calculate this data from using the GST filing from different firms how much they have produced. I can calculate this data from the registration of vehicles in India from the e-Vahan profile. This is how I am increasing the sources so that my consumption expenditure data can be captured. First, to capture this data, I will use PLFS and the annual survey for unincorporated enterprises. This is for production related data. This is for consumption related data. But I will come to know how much expenditure has been done. Is this making sense? I'll show you the facts also. I'm just telling you the basics of this so that you can relate to the facts, what exactly has changed. The second thing here is what is called as gross capital formation. This is a very problematic thing. What is included and what is not included. The private final consumption expenditure is the household buying consumer goods, whether they are durable or non-durable. Durable goods are something used multiple times, non-durable is consumed once. The gross capital formation is total expenditure which has been made on capital goods, that is investment expenditure in my economy. Now what is this investment expenditure? Now these are the types of questions which they have not yet tested in the prelims. They have not asked the meaning of private final consumption expenditure. They have not asked the meaning of gross capital formation. But doesn't mean they can't, because there is now a context that there are changes made in the GDP. Without understanding these terms, you will not be able to understand the changes. So why we are doing all of these technical terms? Because there is a probability they can ask what is counted in GACF, what is counted as government expenditure, what is counted in PFCE. Why? Because there has been a methodology change which has been predominant in the last 2 months. Also there was news last year where IMF said that Indian data collection or Indian data estimation has an issue. A lot of analysis, primarily the previous chief economic advisor, Arvind Subramaniam, and there's another economist, Josh Fellman. They've written a number of articles on how GDP estimation in India remains a problem. Even after the methodology change, they said there are some issues. Next day, so there were 2 articles. First, all of these 3 people wrote first that there are still issues even after changes. The next 2-3 days, there was a response from the present chief economic advisor saying that the methodology is in line with international standards and the GDP is going to be closer to whatever is happening in the economy. So this context of last 1 year is why this topic becomes important. Otherwise, this topic did not have salience in the last 15 years in terms of PYQs. This topic is context relevant because of what is happening in the last 1 year. The changes directly may not be asked. The basic questions from the terms might be asked. What is included where and what is the meaning of this term? Now what is gross capital formation? It is the expenditure which is done on capital goods. Now what is the expenditure done on capital goods? What is all included? Understand this side carefully. Maximum confusion happens on this side only. Gross capital formation first includes gross fixed capital formation. What is this meaning of gross fixed capital formation? As the name suggests, capital goods which are fixed, used in production but are not consumed. What are the different types of fixed capital formation which can be included? First would be whatever money is spent on machines and equipment. The second type is what is we call as construction, dwelling or buildings. That is construction of infrastructure. And the third gross fixed capital formation, this is the most trickiest part. If people spend on capital goods could be machines, capital goods could be creation of infrastructure. Capital goods can also be livestock which is used in production. Dairy, cattle, milch, animals, these are also capital goods. Whenever someone buys a particular animal which is going to produce certain goods, this will also be included under gross capital formation as fixed capital. These are the three major heads which are counted under gross fixed capital formation. The second head that gets counted here is what is called as change in inventories. Change in inventories means those goods which are produced but not sold, and those raw and intermediate materials which were not processed. Now what is this meaning of this head? The meaning of gross fixed capital formation is clear. I'll show you what exactly the heads they have counted. This is from the Ministry of Stats and Program Implementation itself. This is fixed capital formation. First part I told you was construction. Buildings, irrigation system, power water projects, communication infrastructure, land development, not shift of land. There has to be some development on land, construction should happen. Plantation and agriculture development, afforestation, renewable energy installations. And if the government spends money in any major repair, alteration or even incomplete construction, this expenditure is also counted. Any construction work, modification made to the land, major minor repair and also your incomplete construction, everything gets included. These are the facts which can be asked. Out of the following, which of them can be included in gross capital formation? The second major head is machinery and equipment, which includes agriculture, industrial, power generating machinery, transport, furniture, software. A very important component here, that software is also investment. Investment expenditure is a capital good. This was a change made in 2008 SNA. Livestock used for production, breeding stock, draught animals, dairy cattle and other productive animals. Machinery mein they are including even livestock. This is from MOSPI. Further, what is to be included or excluded? Certain machinery related to defense. Load ही नहीं हो रहा है. If any major changes are made to embassies or consulate offices in India, would that be included in investment expenditure in India? If US embassy makes a construction, US embassy makes a repair in India, would that be included in India's GDP under gross capital formation? Why? What is considered as domestic territory? Load ही नहीं हो रहा है पेज. There are 4 heads under domestic territory. First is your political boundary. Whatever is your territorial land, air mass, the airspace, water, everything. Second is your territorial enclaves, which are outside. Territorial enclaves outside, which includes embassy, consulate office, military bases, and scientific bases. Apart from that, I will have aircrafts and ships operating in outside country by Indian residents, Air India operating outside, and fishing vessels, oil and natural gas, this in international waters. This is what is domestic territory. So your embassy consulates of outside countries in your, it will not be gross capital formation, but if you make changes in your embassies outside, that is gross capital formation. Technical team bhejna wo PPT nahi chal rahi. Is it making sense? So that will not be added. I'll show you more things what are included and what are not. Now what is change in inventory? If I produce 15 goods in 1 year, 5 are taken by household, 5 are taken by government, 3 are taken by exports. There are 2 goods which were produced but not sold. This one will be counted where? Household will be counted where? Private final, government is, and this will be counted under produce 15 हुए, expenditure came of only 13. Where are the remaining 2? Is this clear? Similarly, I had 18 raw and intermediate material. Conversion happened of 15. There are 3 raw and intermediate material which is produced but not processed. If they are produced and not processed, are they considered final for that particular year? What is final good? What is the meaning of final good? One is, there are 2 definitions. Final goods are those which cannot be processed further, which are not processed further, and second, which are for final satisfaction of wants, ready to consume. Now these 3 raw intermediate materials, are they processed further in this 1 year when I am counting GDP? 18 में से 15 convert हुए. So your final good is going to give me the value of the 15 here also. Who is going to give me the value of the remaining 3? Value of the remaining 3 is going to come from what? 300 kgs of cotton was produced, and from this 300 kg cottons, 200 kg was used to making a shirt. So your counting of shirt made sure that you counted 200 kg. How will you count the remaining 100 kg of cotton? The remaining 100 is not processed further in that year. So for that year, is it final? If it is not processed further for that year, that is means it is final for that year. This 100 kg remaining cotton, if it is not converted into a shirt, is it not final production for that year? How do we define final? Final is something which is not processed or something which is used for final satisfaction. Here consumer is not buying it. That means satisfaction point removed. It was bought by a particular person but he did not process it. If he did not process it, is it not final for that year? So that means I will have to count this 100. 200 got counted in the shirt, 100 got left. So that will be counted under change in. Anything which is not processed becomes final. Is it clear? And the third thing is we include the valuables. What are the valuables that are included? All the expensive items which are bought by the household, which I could not classify under consumption or could not classify under capital. So I gave it a new head, that is valuables. It's called as net acquisition of valuables. whatever I buy or whatever I sell. Is it making sense? All of this is what is counted under fixed capital formation. Fixed capital inventory and this gross capital formation investment expenditure. This construction would also include construction of homes by household. This is all what is included. This is to remember construction, machines, equipment. PPT display kyun nahi ho rahi? I hope the gross capital formation component is clear. इसका fixed capital का question is what is might come up. Construction part, the machinery and equipment including livestock. This is what was the exclusion part. Military construction related to family housing. In the defense quarters, if there is family housing being created, that will not be counted under here. Defense equipment and materials are not counted. Durable goods owned by the household. Durable goods owned by the household is say vehicles owned by the household. They will not be counted under gross capital formation. Non-reproducible natural asset, land, mineral deposits, natural forests will not be counted. This is the wealth of a nation. This is not something I'm producing. So this is an important part which you should remember. This could be very well be a question. Are land, minerals or even forest counted in GDP under expenditure? They are not counted. If I modify them, if I create a mine to bring the material out, that is counted. This is why the inclusion would be building anything on ordnance factory, clothing factories, mining site, timber tracts or plantations. Modification done on that is something which be included and not the non-reproducible natural asset. This language itself verbatim picked from the Ministry of Stats and Program Implementation. Gross capital formation, fixed capital. Another thing I told you about domestic and international, included domestically produced capital goods. This is what we counted under fixed capital. Imported, new and second hand. This is an important concept. Second hand goods we don't consider. In imported second hand goods, we count under GCF. It will be removed under imports, but it will be first counted under GCF. So imported second hand capital goods are part of it. Otherwise imported goods are not, second hand goods are not included. Imported second hand goods are included. Investment made by embassies, consulate and government institutions. This is what I told you, that is our territory जो बाहर किया है. Excluded capital formation by foreign embassies and consulates within India. Three major things which have to be noted down here. What are included? First, that is livestock. Software, I think most people know it is capital investment. Second is non-reproducible natural asset. That means as it is what they exist is not included. Any changes made to them in terms of mining site, timber tracts or even plantations, this is counted. Plantation agriculture is an investment. That is counted. Domestic versus international treatment is what we discussed already. इसमें important है imported, new and second hand goods. New तो automatically we were counting because expenditure done on machines will be counted under machines equipments. But on second hand good will be included or not, that is yes. Domestic second hand good include नहीं होता है. This will be added in GCF. Total GDP say it will be subtracted because it was not our production. But will it be considered in investment expenditure? The answer is yes. Changes 2022-23. Data sources which I was talking about, household sector, annual survey of unincorporated sector. This is what I was telling you, unincorporated enterprises are part of household, plus PLFS. GST data was earlier not there, now state allocation, cross-validation, quarterly estimates to improve our data on how much the spending is being done. Transport data, EVAN data for vehicles and transport sources. So once you understand which head we are talking about, you'll be able to make sense of how sources are being multiplied. Government accounts from the actual public finance management system. This is digital infrastructure with the government from we are going to find government data. This is what is critical. I'll explain what is counted here. Consumption studies. different sectors giving consumption, the National Dairy Research Institute, consumption for milk. The transport sector, the losses, different sector wise we are counting what exactly should come, sources are being multiplied. Is it making sense? Another major change that has been made, before deflator I'll explain. Deflator, and this is your government. Do we include subsidies in, or what do we include in government expenditure? You have understood the private final and gross capital. What is included in government final expenditure? Third component here is government final consumption expenditure. This is a very interesting concept. Methodology change would make sense once you understand this concept. There are three major changes being made. The income and also the pensions, the updated and the new data, subsidy involvement, and there's one more change. I'll show you what exactly the wages, how they will be linked to what deflator. What do we include here in government final consumption expenditure? In private final consumption expenditure, I included whatever the household spend on consumer goods. In gross capital formation, I included whatever the firm, government and household spent on capital goods, including valuables and stocks. Third component is this. What is included here? You know what is included here? No one has an idea. First, what is the role of government in the economy? What does the government do in the economy? Subsidies कैसे ही समझ लोगे फिर? If FCI is distributing food grains for free, do I count that expenditure in GDP? If FCI is distributing food for free, the household said, I asked household how much did you consume food? Household said, I bought 5 kg but there was no money spent. But was there production? 5 kg कहाँ से आया? If you given 5 kg to them, from where did that come? From where did that 5 kg turn up? Production. So are we counting production? What are we counting in GDP? Statement याद करने से question solve नहीं होता है. You have to apply your brain. Definitely it gets added. Transfer incomes from the government, such as welfare payment, scholarships, these are not included. Why? Because there is nothing being produced. But if government is giving you 5 kg free food grains, government is giving you free housing, government is giving you free electricity, इन तीनों के पीछे production है. That means I need to include them. How I have included them is something which has changed for FCI. They've clearly mentioned FCI को हम यहाँ से यहाँ shift कर रहे हैं. Earlier what I was doing was, FCI is a firm. Just like all production units, FCI is a firm which delivers a service of taking food from one place and giving to someone else. Transportation, storage, distribution का काम है FCI का. Transportation, distribution, storage, are these three services? Are they being produced? Earlier what I was doing was, whatever the government paid as money as subsidy to me, that was counted as within the firm itself. FCI was seen as a firm. Now government is saying we will not consider you as a firm separately, we will count it in our expenditures itself. I'll show you how exactly they do that. Now all of these expenditures, they are money spent on buying goods. Household bought a car, I added 10 lakh rupees here. The household spent 15 lakh rupees in constructing a home, I added in GCF. The firm bought a machine for 5 lakh rupees, I added in GCF. All of them are money spent. This particular component is not an expenditure component, this is a cost component. What do I mean by this is a cost component? First thing, the government was responsible for providing me administration, policing, revenue, different types of services. Second, the government was creating public goods, infrastructure, non-rival, non-excludable. Finally, the government was also doing socio-economic welfare, where the government was either providing income to the people directly, or the government was delivering goods and services to the people for a subsidy. This is not part. Why? Because GDP does not measure unilateral income flow. Gifts, donations, remittances, transfer income coming from the government is not part of GDP. Why? Because in part of income, government gave income to the household, but there was no good or service which was produced. But if the government gives good or service, that means there was production. That means subsidized product to definitely count hoga. How it will be counted, I tell you, there are two methods. They shifted FCI from one method to another method, which they called as social in-kind transfers. The GDP estimation techniques come from the United Nations. The United Nations give us the format which we call as System of National Accounts. So in System of National Accounts, in year 2008, they had already told us we have to do this. The present methodology change is in line with SNA 2008. Although there has been a new SNA in 2025 also. But we are saying this format will use in the year 2030. How does any country estimate its production, income, expenditures? Is driven by the United Nations Statistical Commission. That Statistical Commission provides a format of doing it. That format is called as System of National Accounts. System of National Accounts 2008 is what we are following right now, even when the methodology has changed. 2025 also they have given recommendations, but we have not yet included 2025. We will do that in 2000. So if the statement is going to ask you the recent GDP methodology changes are based on SNA 2025, the answer is no. It is still based on SNA 2008. 25 we have said we will adopt it in 30. Right now we have not done it. So changes are mostly with respect to how data collection happens. Some identity changes have also happened, but they're not very major. Deflation technique is major, quarter to annual is major, base year is major. Otherwise methodology is not a lot of change because we are still relying on SNA 2008. Now, coming back to this, is this clear what exactly the government is doing? Now, for this, the government, whatever it is spending on public goods, this is already counted under gross fixed capital formation. Construction, machines, equipments already count ho gaye. How do I count administration and socio-economic welfare? Now, administration as a service is being delivered to household and firms. Are they paying a price to the government for delivering this service? If you are getting policing service, you are getting fire protection service, you are getting revenue service, are you paying anything to the government? पुलिस के लिए कुछ पैसा दिया आपने? It's by the tax money which everyone has given. You have not given anything special. That means you are utilizing the service without paying a. That means service was generated, was produced, but there is no market price for it. If a service was produced but there was no market price for it, how will I calculate it? If a service is produced but the market price is not available, understand a separate example, you will make sense of this. Firm produced a car was bought by the household. Did the car have a market price? So you counted the market price, you said expenditure was 10 lakh rupees. The government delivered a service and the household said the service was delivered for free. How will I estimate what the money spent on the service is? Do you understand the problem? Whatever the government is producing in the economy, that particular good or service is not sold for a price. They are being sold for. That means I will now have to estimate how much did the government spend on its. So for other variables, you ask the expenditure. For government, you will have to ask the. Now what is the cost government has in delivering this service? What is the cost? Government will have to pay salary plus pension to its employees. That is the first component. Second, In order to deliver the service, will government have to buy goods and services from the firm to deliver this? Police service देने के लिए, would the government have to buy the dress of the policeman and give it to the policeman? The government would have to set up a police station and buy the table, chair and light. That means I will have to make a purchase of certain goods and services in order to deliver this service. Which means government expenditure is on salary, government expenditure is on. Now this salary and purchase is a general expenditure which is done for all services. Right? What is the other expenditure government is doing? Is this making sense how this service will be added? Now, socio-economic welfare which the government is doing. Consider the case of FCI. In case of FCI, the government is taking the grains from the FCI and then is giving to the household, and it is giving 5 kg, but is it receiving anything in return? This type of a transfer where I deliver a good or service without taking money, I will add up in a variable which I will call as social in-kind transfer. हमने FCI को तो 5 लाख रुपए दिए, but we delivered it to you for free. That is called as social in-kind transfer. There are two dynamics here. If you give it for free, how much money you will have to pay is 5 lakh. But if you don't give it for free, let us say government charged a nominal amount के 5 रुपए सबको देना है. Total people which were collected, we say कि 1 lakh rupees was collected out of this. Actual cost was 5 lakh. 1 lakh is spent by whom? PFCE will say 1 lakh rupees on food grains. What will social in-kind transfer say? Government spent 5 lakh, received 1 lakh. This number will say, now 5 lakh production got counted. 5 lakh production got counted. Social in-kind transfer means government gave at what price and received what price. Since there's a difference between the two, that is government expenditure. हमने 5 लाख की चीज फ्री में दे दी. Received is 0, spent was 5. So social in-kind transfer is 5. हमने 5 लाख की चीज 1 लाख में दे दी. 1 lakh got counted under private final consumption expenditure. Government expenditure में count हो जाएगा. Is this making sense? They have made a change like this here. So now government expenditure gets counted how? Government expenditure, which I am calling as government final consumption expenditure, is a cost component. First, is it a cost component? Is making sense? Cost component means it will include wages, salary and pension. Cost component means it will include purchase of, this is called as intermediate consumption. Third, it will include social in-kind transfers which they have done for FCI. All of the three are cost. They're not money spent on buying it. They are money spent on delivering it. Rest component are money spent on buying. This component is money spent on delivering. Government has also created public goods under gross fixed capital formation. Can we have a depreciation of these capital goods? That is the fourth component, which is called as consumption of fixed capital. This cost, we say, is the cost of delivering general services. This is the cost of delivering special. Targeted है, सबको नहीं है. This is for all. Is it making sense how the government components are added? These are the 4 components under government final consumption, which are cost method, which is not expenditure. Expenditure in buying नहीं है, expenditure in delivering है. Is this making sense? Now you can understand the difference here. What changes they have introduced. Pension. Now you see why pensions will be added. In other components, there is no pension. Why? Because pension is part of income. It's income method. But here we'll have to count pension, which will be adjusted for NPS and the new NPS OPS rollout. HRA imputation. Imputation for government provided accommodation. Whenever in income method we calculate rent, do we calculate rent for your own house? In the income method, when we count the rent, do we count the rent for own houses? ये कॉन्सेप्ट भी इम्प्यूटेड रेंट का कॉन्सेप्ट इज इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर इनकम. वो यहाँ क्यों काउंट हो रहा है? बिकॉज गवर्नमेंट वेजेस के पार्ट में देता है इम्प्यूटेशन. In the income method, what is the return to land? What is the return to land? It is called, and for resource it is called royalty. Now what is this meaning of rent? Is the rent only for land that is leased in, or do we include the rent for self-occupied homes also? We do include the rent for self-occupied homes by imputing a value to it. Why do we do that? Country A and country B. Country A has most of the people living on rent. Country A has less people living in own homes. Country B has more people living in homes and less people living on rent. If I only count rented places, which country will have more GDP? If I only count rented places, which country will have more GDP? A. That means, did I create a perverse incentive for less housing? In order to solve this problem, SNA said, every home rent should be counted, whether rented or self-occupied. How will you calculate this? You will try to impute a value from market. If this house would have been given on rent, what would be the rent? You estimate that and count it in GDP. So when the government creates housing for its employees in order to deliver service, the imputed value of rent is counted. This is what the methodological change is. The imputed value of own occupied homes is counted. HRA imputation was not included before, now it is. HRA is part of your income. Since I included income, income was pension, income was HRA. Both parts are included. Is it making sense? If you don't understand government final consumption expenditure, methodology change will not make sense. FCI classification, earlier I told you FCI is corporate. It was given a product subsidy. Now I'll tell you what product subsidy we just discussed. Now FCI is moved to, that is, whenever the government gives certain goods and services for someone for a less cost, I will include it under social transfer in kind. Deflator compensation, I'll tell you the concept of deflator. It is using now CPI industrial worker. This is an indicator. Transfer in kind for FCA moved from foreign after NFSA, the same FCA which I told you. Social transfer in kind का meaning पता होना चाहिए. Government spending money to deliver a good and service for a lesser cost to you. There's an expenditure made which is counting in GDP. Government transferring income does not get added. Social transfer in kind gets added because a product was produced which was given to you at a subsidized price. I'll tell you the meaning of this product subsidy and deflation. First, this is what is your this year's. You should have a broader idea. GDP comes from where. In the product method, the gross value added, agriculture adds roughly 15-16%. Industry adds 24%, where 12%, 13% is manufacturing. Services adds the maximum. Broader idea of differentiation of output should be clear how much it is adding. This is expenditure side. Private final consumption expenditure is, India is a consumption-led economy. Government final consumption expenditure is gross capital formation 30, export is 21. This will add up to be more than 100. Why? Why this number is more than 100? 61 plus 10, 72, 72 and 30 is 102, 102 and 21, 123.5. Why? वो तो इसमें कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन में है, फिक्स कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन. Why it is more than 100? Yes, because I have all of the 4 components include imports. Apart from export, these 3 are including imports. I have to remove imports. Consider this. This is gross value added. 15, 24, 51. What is the addition? 15, 24, 40, 51. Why is it not 100? Are remittances included in GDP? Why is it not 100? Economic survey के table हैं दोनों. इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर तो प्रोडक्शन में तो काउंट होगा ही ना, चाहे उसकी मेथोडोलॉजी कुछ भी हो. मेथोडोलॉजी इश्यूज हैं उसके, बट काउंट तो होगा. वाई? नॉमिनल जीडीपी के परसेंटेज में क्यों नहीं आ रहा है? व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन जीवी एंड जीडीपी? दिस इज द परसेंटेज ऑफ नॉमिनल जीडीपी, इट्स कमिंग आउट टू बी 91%, नॉट टोटल. 2 प्रॉब्लम है इसमें. अंडरस्टैंड द फर्स्ट प्रॉब्लम. वी हैव 3 मेथड्स. 3 methods. Income method provides me data which we call as factor cost. Product method which we call as basic price. Then expenditure method which is market price. This is GVA, this is GDP. What is the relationship between the 3? Income is paid within the factory. Production unit ke within the factor will get incomes. But if the government says on this particular production activity, you will have to pay a production tax, and for production I might give you a production subsidy. That means this is my final price of the product. 3 methods are what? Income is paid within the factory, product reaches the factory gate, you ask him the value addition, and then the product reaches the market. Which means the point of data collection was different, so the price was different. So when you asked the labor how much factor income did you receive, they said X rupees. But when I reached the factory gate, the price of the product came out to be Y. My understanding said if you paid X, the good should be X rupees. If you produced something for X, that means your rent plus wage plus interest plus profit, if it comes out to be X, since it is also including profit, your product should sell for X. But when you said value added, you said it is not X, it is Y. The difference? Because on top of X, the government put a production tax and gave me a production. This X is what I called factor cost. This Y is what I called as. But when I asked the household how much did you spend money on it, they said we spent Z. Why did you spend Z when Y he is selling for? The answer was because there is an application of minus the product subsidy, which then becomes Z. So GVA was this, GDP is this. Now you understand why it was 91%. Why? Because there was no addition of product tax, indirect taxes, GST, minus. Now the second thing here, now you realize how FCI money was added. Earlier FCI was treated as a firm, so the money got added here, product subsidy. But now I am treating FCI as government, where I am including as social income transfer. Now you understand the difference. Earlier FCI was treated as a firm which had to be paid a product subsidy. Now I am not treating it as a firm, I am treating that particular expenditure as social income transfer. Is this making sense? Now you understand why 91 and this. The second thing here. India chooses two methods. One method is product, where we calculate the GVA, and the other is expenditure, where we calculate the GDP, right? Is it possible that I produce value of X rupees, but the expenditure is showing me a different figure? If I add GVA plus product tax minus product subsidy, these figures should come out to be the same. If I make this adjustment, I am saying my economies produce 100 rupees worth of goods. But when I ask the people who are spending the money, they said, we have spent 97. Adjustment हो चुकी है. Can this difference happen? Did you understand this? I am saying I produced 100 rupees worth of goods in 1 year and all of the goods were sold. लोग कह रहे हैं हमने तो 95 का ही खरीदा है, तो 5 रुपए गुड्स कहां गए? वो सब्सिडी वब्सिडी सब ऐड हो गई है, वो सब कर लिया है. मेरा 100 इज आफ्टर सब्सिडी एंड टैक्स. आई एम सेइंग इंक्लूसिव ऑफ ऑल टैक्स, एमआरपी टैक्स भी ऐड कर दिया, सब्सिडी भी एडजस्ट कर दी. आई एम सेइंग 100 रुपीज का जीडीपी बना मेरा, इंक्लूडिंग टैक्स सब्सिडी. बट व्हेन आई आस्क्ड हाउ मच हाउस होल्ड स्पेंट, दे सेड 95. हाउ इज दैट पॉसिबल? डेप्रिसिएशन तो वो ऑलरेडी एडेड है ना, मैंने अपने खर्चे में तो डेप्रिसिएशन ऐड किया हुआ है और उस प्रोडक्ट के वैल्यू में भी डेप्रिसिएशन एडेड है. वो तो नेट पे आएगा तब डेप्रिसिएशन, अभी तो डेप्रिसिएशन एडेड है. आई एम सेइंग एवरीथिंग इज सोल्ड, देयर इज नथिंग लेफ्ट. दैट मीन्स ईदर द प्रोडक्शन यूनिट इज लाइंग, ये तो मैं झूठ बोल रहा हूं, 95 का बनाया था मैं 100 झूठ बोल रहा हूं, और कंज्यूमर इज लाइंग. हु हैज अ हायर चांस ऑफ लाइंग? Why not producer? Why? Because producer data is captured under Ministry of Corporate Affairs 21 database, where you have to every time file whatever you are doing. This is the methodology change that happened last time. Okay, corporate data will be added from MCA 21. So that means balance sheet will check. So we know that he has actually produced it. So who is lying? Or the expenditure has not been accounted for. वो झूठ नहीं बोल रहे हैं, पर अभी मैं पूछ नहीं पाया सबसे. Can it happen? This particular component where there is a difference between product and GDP even after this is what is called as statistical discrepancy. Expenditure में ये नंबर ऐड करते हैं इस नंबर को सच मानते हुए. We believe GVA is giving us the true number. Expenditure is not being able to justify production right now. Doesn't mean it has not happened. Maybe I did not reach the person who spent it. मेरे डेटा कलेक्शन में प्रॉब्लम थी, खर्चा तो हुआ है 100 का, डेटा कलेक्शन कुड नॉट डू इट. फॉर दैट आई विल कैलकुलेट डिस्क्रिपेंसी. सो व्हाट प्रीवियसली दे यूज्ड टू डू, इफ माय जीडीपी फ्रॉम प्रोडक्ट मेथड इज कमिंग आउट टू बी 4 ट्रिलियन and from expenditure method it is coming out to be 3.8 trillion, I will assume this number to be correct, and to this number I will add a discrepancy that expenditure has happened but I am not able to collect it as of now, justify नहीं कर पा रहा अभी, but number ये true है. So what they used to do is a cumulative discrepancy is what they used to add. Cumulative discrepancy of the entire economy. Is it making sense? We said entire economy ka there is only one cumulative discrepancy, 2 trillion. Now what they have said in new methodology is we are not going to have cumulative discrepancy. We'll not add 2 trillion anymore. Now what we will do is we are going to construct supply use table. What is the meaning of supply use table? I am going to draw from where the supply happened and I am going to reach where exactly it is used for each and every item, so that every item discrepancy I am able to add separately. Cumulative economy में 2 trillion add नहीं करेंगे, अब हर item को trace करेंगे कहां से आई और कहां गई. That is called as supply use table. This is the another change in the expenditure method, where I'm going to construct this. This is a supply use table. I'm going to for every item draw this from where the consumption happened, production happened, whatever the imports, and where it was used. intermediate consumption, final consumption, capital formation or exports. So every discrepancy of every item will be recorded separately. This is what they called statistical discrepancy, which was earlier attached to expenditure side, is now supply and use table for each item. Why am I explaining this? You can just get a question which says, what do you mean by statistical discrepancy? What do you mean by supply use table? What are components of government final consumption expenditure? What is the concept of gross capital formation? Why GV and GDP numbers are different? I told you two reasons. One is product tax, product subsidy, and second I told you the concept of discrepancy. Now when you read the methodological changes, you'll understand how exactly the differences happened, because the base terms were making sense. One thing is left, that is deflator. I'll tell you what deflator is. Deflator ke liye the number of things have happened. Earlier, only agriculture was being double deflated. Now all sectors will be double deflated. How do we reach from nominal GDP to real GDP? How do we convert nominal GDP into real GDP? Nominal GDP is what? Nominal GDP is quantity, current into price, current. How do you calculate real GDP of the country? Quantity, current into price, base. How do you do that? Forget nominal GDP for a while. Tell me how this calculation is done. Then you will be able to make sense of deflator. Otherwise, so there's no sense. Double deflation, single deflation, वहीं से समझ आएगा. You tell me how this is calculated. Last year, UPSC had a brilliant question on GDP deflator in CDS. That asked statements: what is GDP deflator and what does it measure? In order to calculate deflator first, I need real GDP. How do I calculate real GDP? How do I do that? रियल जीडीपी का डेटा कहां से आ रहा है? कैसे? आप फॉर एग्जाम्पल in agriculture you are producing wheat. You know what is the current year production and you know what is the current year price. Total India has produced wheat is 115 million tons. How do you know what is the price of wheat in base year? Who's calculating this? Or Reliance India Limited, price current into quantity current. This is what value they tell how much they have added. Can they tell how much quantity they have produced today, which you can then multiply it by price of base? किसी भी फर्म में फाइनल प्राइस पता चलता है या अलग अलग ये दोनों कंपोनेंट पता चलते हैं? In any particular firm, if you ask you how much production you have done, do they tell you the cumulative figure or do they tell you what products they have made separately and prices separately? Let us assume एक प्रोडक्शन यूनिट है. क्वेश्चन वहां से समझ आएगा, फिर ये समझ आएगा. There is one player who produces pens. He produces 10 different categories of pens. For calculating his total value, will he give you the quantity and price of all pens together? Get my turnover or sales and my input cost was X, turnover sales was Y. So my total value addition is Y minus. Is he telling you what is total quantity of 10 pens and price of each pen? Then how will you calculate price of base? कोई भी प्रोड्यूसर अपना उसी साल का क्वांटिटी इंटू प्राइस ही तो बताएगा. ये मेरी सेल्स है, ये मेरा इनपुट था. ग्रॉस वैल्यू एडेड इज वाई माइनस एक्स. यू एडेड फॉर ऑल, यू गेट द ग्रॉस वैल्यू एडेड ऑफ एंटायर कंट्री. वैल्यू एडेड ऑफ वन फर्म इज व्हाट? हाउ मच सेल्स ही मेड और हाउ मच प्रोडक्शन ही मेड माइनस द नॉट सेल्स, इट्स एक्चुअली प्रोडक्शन. Sales plus inventory minus input. That means for any particular firm, you know quantity into price as a cumulative, that too also for current year. So how will you calculate his production of base? For base, you have to know quantity current and price of, ये कैसे पता चलेंगे दोनों नंबर? How will you calculate that? Do you get my point? If Vision IAS said that they have a turnover over X rupees this year, how will you find out their turnover on present quantity of year 2015? This mechanism to know the base price and quantity separately is not available. So what we do is, do we know what is the inflation of 15 and inflation of 25? Can I now reduce this bigger number by the inflation figure? For example, if I'm saying I bought 15 pens today for 100 rupees each, total GDP of my country became, if the same 15 pens I would have bought in 2015, this 15 pens I will be able to know if I know what is the percentage price change in these 2 years. If I know that the percentage price change in the 2 years is 10%, that means I will deflate the 1500 by 10% to come to know what is the price of 15 pens in 2015. That means quantity तो same ही रही, क्योंकि हमने पूरे number को change किया. The only thing that got deflated was, this means nominal GDP is converted to real GDP by using a deflator. What is this choice of deflator? Earlier we were using for most of the sectors WPI and some sectors. Now what we are doing is, we are going to use WPI and CPI, but we are going to use other price indices also, which they are saying 300 price indices अलग-अलग product के सबके बनाएंगे हम. So I will know pens inflation, I will know chairs inflation, I will know clothing inflation, I will know fruits inflation, I will know food inflation, which I will have to deflate. Not just these two, unit indices और भी बनाएंगे 300 plus, which will help us to move from one sector to another sector. Is this clear? But how will we do this? You said that deflation should happen of the quantity into price current, quantity into price base. Deflation is happening only on the output price. पेन मिलता था 100 रुपए का, पेन मिल रहा है 10 साल पहले 50 रुपए का. That means the output price of the pen is being deflated. This is called as single deflation. When only the output price is deflated, using any indicator you choose. You said any indicator, आपने उसको पीछे ले गए, deflate कर दिया उस price को using an inflation indicator. This is single deflation. But don't you think the pen input prices would have changed differently as from output prices? So what now I do is, output price is 100, input price is 80. Earlier I was only changing the number that was. Now I will deflate it using this indicator. I will deflate it using another indicator. So what I get is, say for example, from deflating 100 using CPI, I get 90, and from deflating using WPI, I get 40 here. This is gross value added. When I was doing, I was only deflating 100 to arrive at a price say 90. Now I'm doing is deflating output by another indicator and input by another indicator. This difference is what gives me the real GDP. This is called as double deflation. Single deflation is when you just deflate the output by any indicator you choose. Double deflation is when you choose one indicator for output, another for input. Then you get the actual gross value added. This is real GVA for this sector. This is called as double deflation. I was only deflating the output. Now I'm deflating output by one indicator, input by another indicator, which tells me what is my actual real GVA. Now if my real GVA for the pen sector is this, Can I calculate for all firms using different indicators? I'm not just in doing output, I'm doing both output and input deflation. I'm getting all. Similarly, I will get it for different sectors. This particular sector, agriculture sector, had double deflation before. Now agriculture, manufacturing both had double deflation. This is what is the meaning here of double deflator. Deflation in manufacturing was happening single. Only output was being deflated. Now, double deflation, separate for inputs and outputs. Agriculture still has double deflation. And what indicators I will use for inflation? Earlier I was using CPI or WPI only. Now I will create item level indices, more than 3 indices. Earlier dominations WPI का था. 70% items को हम WPI से deflate करते थे. This is why the constant allegation that WPI is not increasing so much, तो आपका real GDP बहुत बड़ा दिख रहा है. क्योंकि डिफ्लेट तो आपने ज्यादा किया नहीं. नाउ दे आर सेइंग डबल डिफ्लेशन और यूनिट इंडिकेशन इन्फ्लेशन करेंगे, हर प्राइस का हर गुड का इंडिकेटर बनाएंगे. स्टैटिस्टिकल डिस्क्रिपेंसीज एंड मल्टीपल एक्टिविटी कॉप्स इज स्मॉल थिंग. इज इट मेकिंग सेंस? दीज आर द मेजर चेंजेस. what you need to know is the social in-kind transfers, gross capital formation, change in base year, concept of discrepancy and concept of deflation. These I'm telling you the broader things which have been included. Rest, sorry, smaller change also. This is why I told you the sources point. Is it making sense? Same thing here. Government की अगर income को हमें deflate करना है, compensation paid to the employer was earlier done by CPI general, now it will be done by CPI. अगर government का valuation देखें, so in government valuation I told you a term that was wages. How do I deflate the wages? I am using the indicator of, remember GFC had a component of wage, तो उसको भी तो deflate करना पड़ेगा, तो उसको हम CPI industrial worker से deflate करेंगे. These are potential questions that can come in prelims, but otherwise if you understand the basic broader terms, this topic will not be a problem. This is how dynamic concept can have a static question. You know the basics or not. Is this making sense? Any doubt in understanding any of this? This can also be a potential question. Which all of is included in agriculture, what is included in industry and what is included in services? एक इसमें मेजर चेंज है जो पता होना चाहिए. माइनिंग इज अ प्राइमरी एक्टिविटी बट इज इन काउंटेड इन इंडस्ट्री इन इंडिया. माइनिंग एंड क्वेरिंग इज नॉट काउंटेड इन एग्रीकल्चर. देयर वाज सच टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चंस प्राइमरी सेकेंडरी टर्शियरी 2 साल पहले. So this can also be in India's classification of GDP through economic activities. Mining is an industrial activity. What is included in agriculture? These 4 sectors: crops, livestock, forestry and fishing. 4. इंडस्ट्री में माइनिंग है, कंस्ट्रक्शन है. आरबीआई की क्लासिफिकेशन में कंस्ट्रक्शन सर्विस बन जाता है, बट गवर्नमेंट की क्लासिफिकेशन में कंस्ट्रक्शन इज इंडस्ट्री ओनली. दिस वाज योर एक्सपेंडिचर कंपोनेंट्स. हम पहले क्या कर रहे थे, हमारा इनपुट प्राइस का हम इन्फ्लेशन देख ही नहीं रहे थे, हम सिर्फ आउटपुट को डिफ्लेट कर रहे थे. सिंगल डिफ्लेटर होगा. अब क्या कर रहे हो आप? यस डबल डिफ्लेटर है. वेट, आई विल टेल यू वन थिंग हियर. What is your gross value added of a firm? That is total production minus cost of raw or intermediate material. In the single deflation, I am only deflating this output. I am not deflating this. In double deflation, I am deflating this by one number, one index, and I am deflating this by one index. तो आपका जो रियल जीडीपी आएगा वो एक्चुअल ट्रू आएगा कि दोनों डिफ्लेट हुए हैं. आप पहले इसको डिफ्लेट नहीं कर रहे थे, इसको डिफ्लेट कर रहे थे. ये इंटरनेशनल टेक्निक है डबल डिफ्लेशन. इंडिया वाज डूइंग ओनली सिंगल डिफ्लेशन. व्हाई? बिकॉज आर इन्फ्लेशन इंडिकेटर एंड प्राइस कलेक्शन इज ऑल्सो नॉट प्रॉपर इन सीपीआई डब्ल्यूपीआई. और हम स्मार्टली कर भी क्या रहे थे, हम सारे सेक्टर्स को डब्ल्यूपीआई से डिफ्लेट कर रहे थे. 70% को सीपीआई से कर भी नहीं रहे थे जहां इन्फ्लेशन ज्यादा थी. यही थी प्रॉब्लम, यही हाईलाइट हुई थी. अब इन्होंने चेंज कर दिया कि हम डबल डिफ्लेट करेंगे. हुआ क्या है ज्यादा इंडिया में किसी भी प्रोडक्शन यूनिट का, व्हाट डू यू थिंक, होलसेल प्राइस इंडेक्स वाज मोर इन द लास्ट 10 years और कंज्यूमर प्राइस इंडेक्स वाज मोर? और WPI में कमी भी है ना, WPI में सर्विसेज भी नहीं है. यस, एंड सी व्हाट टाइप ऑफ इंडिकेटर यू आर यूजिंग एंड ओनली एट व्हाट एंड. तो ऑटोमेटिकली आपका वो डिफ्लेट ज्यादा होगा नहीं, आपका जीवीए बहुत बड़ा आ जाएगा. तो आपका रिविल जीवीए प्लस आपका परसेंटेज ऑफ ग्रोथ आप जो दिखा रहे हो 7% 8%, वो भी सही नहीं है. वो एक्चुअली 4 5 6% होगा. दिस इज स्टेटिस्टिकल इश्यूज जो अब हमने ठीक कर दिए हैं. वो तभी समझ आएंगे जब आपको ब्रॉडर पता होगा कि होता क्या था पहले. इज इट मेकिंग सेंस? This is from your GDP and what the questions can be from growth, nominal, real and all those related concepts here. Now one small concept which they have not yet tested, though they have tested in some of the years, but still a probable potential question. What do you mean by development? What do you mean by development? They have asked questions. I will talk about measurement of development mostly. What do you mean by development? Country is said to have economic growth. What do you mean by that? Tell me आगे. If you say quality, tell me quality in what terms? Per capita income, don't you think it's growth? पैसे किसको मिलेंगे वो? See, understand one by one. There are 3 paradigms of development understanding. Development understanding right now is actually quality because it's talking about all choices. How do you measure that? That measurement will make sense once you know what development is. Idea is very simple. The resources have to be converted into goods and services. Why? Because goods and services have utility, which means they can satisfy wants. Right? Now, if this conversion happens, the more the output is generated, don't you think the satisfaction for wants will be more? The more the output is created, the more will be satisfaction of wants. That means this increase in output is nothing but growth. How is output measured? Output is total. GDP बढ़ता जाएगा, वो ग्रोथ है. Why? Because जितना आउटपुट होगा उतना आपका वांट सेटिस्फैक्शन का पोटेंशियल ज्यादा है. You can satisfy wants. Why? Because you have so many goods and services available. This particular, how do you want to know how it is distributed or what is the total in the population? You say growth multiplied or divided by population. This becomes per capita income. GDP is a measure of both output and income. Why? Because when output will be generated, there will be generation of. So per capita income is nothing but GDP by. Problem with this concept is, how do I know how production happened? And at the end of the day, production is dependent on something which is limited. That means you can have growth, but that growth might not be sustainable because resources run out. So the first understanding of development was how this growth is happening. That means what is the process of production? Any economy which has productive efficiency and organizational efficiency, they know how to produce better. That is, how much output they produce from input, that is much better as compared to any country which does not have technology. Second, productive efficiency would also mean that I have invested in research and development, I have alternatives to resource. So I'm not dependent on coal, I generate my electricity from sunlight. How do I know that? This is my. So when the economy started increasing productive efficiency and organizational capacity, सिर्फ टेक्नोलॉजी से नहीं होता, लोगों से काम भी करवाना है, मैनेजमेंट एफिशिएंसी. When you do this, your economy will shift from resource based sector to higher technology sector, that is manufacturing and services. That means if the economy produces output using these efficiencies, which then means they will shift from natural sector to manufacturing and services, we call this as development. Economic development traditional idea is that economy should increase productive efficiency and organizational capacity so that ये limitation को solve कर लें वो. Once they're able to do that, we'll call that economy as developed. Why? Because they're not development on natural sector. Natural sector as an issue, इसमें income नहीं बढ़ सकती. In agriculture sector, what are the activities which you can perform? What are the different activities which you can perform in agriculture sector? One, you can do crops. Second, crops maybe you can move from food to cash. Second, you can do livestock. What is the third activity you can do here? Agriculture, energy. Energy is here. Manufacturing, process करोगे mineral को तभी तो energy निकलेगी. Crude oil निकालना भी manufacturing है. निकालना in the sense mining is definitely you can say primary, but then processing of that and then only you produce. That means this sector will have very less of output and will have very less of. That means I have to shift to manufacturing services. This shift to manufacturing and services is what I'm calling as building my efficiency in production and building the efficiency in management. When this happened, the problem was output increased, income increased, but the economy was still facing the problem of and unemployment. ये हमें पता कैसे चला? In order to increase efficiency, they gave us a model for development, which they called as trickle down, where they said if you want to build in efficiency, you increase the level of investment, and investment, since not everyone can do it, few private can do it. 1947 independent India, सबके बस की बात नहीं है, टाटा स्टील प्लांट लगाएगा. There would be some big corporates, we are going to do that. They will increase investment, they will increase capacity, and they will bring in technology. You can use your factors of production better, which is going to create jobs and which is going to create income. Definitely people at the top will have more profit, but at the bottom also income will increase because there was no job. Person was doing agriculture, Tata ने वहाँ plant लगा दिया steel का, अब आपके पास एक नौकरी बन गई. Tata is definitely going to grow richer at a faster pace than you, but you also have better off. Why? Because you're not in agriculture, which is not giving you income. Tata establish a car plant, you start working there. So whenever investment increases, आप agriculture से लगा जाओगे. So your income will increase, but his profit will also increase. But what happens a number of years, 30 years of this, that when this model was followed, these three things happened in the economy. So economic development idea came paradigm 2. Paradigm 1 was production and organizational efficiency, so that structure of economy changes. Based on trickle down. When this model did not give us the result, we said the economy's GDP not only should have productive efficiency, but should also have distribution efficiency. That means whatever production income generates, that income generation should also be fairly distributed. That means the economy has to tackle poverty, inequality, and question is, if the economy is going to do this model of growth, इससे तो inequality आएगी. So how will the economies do that development? That means for productive efficiency you have to follow this. But how will you bring equal distribution of wages? Or how will you end unemployment or poverty or inequality? They said give the role to government, that is government should take from rich and give it to the poor, which they called as redistribution or welfare. 1947 to 1970s, India does not have a concept of redistribution or welfare. India is only doing trickle down approach. Sorry, the only difference was कि ये गवर्नमेंट कर रहा था, बट प्रॉब्लम तो फिर वही आई. So 1970s, the meaning of economic development is the economy should have productive efficiency, plus economy should deal the problem of poverty, inequality, and so a country cannot said to be developed if it has good technology but the people are poor. So now meaning of economic development is both productive efficiency and distributive efficiency, which can only happen if the government is इसीलिए डेवलपमेंट में हम पॉवर्टी, इनइक्वालिटी और अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट मेजर करना शुरू किए. This is why we moved beyond GDP, which was only a measure of growth. In order to measure development, I've had to count poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Is it making sense? This is the first idea of development. UPSC asked a question in 2019. If a country's GDP is increasing, but this is not called development because answer was its poverty and unemployment is rising. Is it making sense, the first? This is meaning of economic development. This is from first paradigm of production to the paradigm of distribution. So now it is growth with redistribution. The third thing happened when in 1990s, Amartya Sen and Mehboob ul Haq, though it was primarily Amartya Sen wrote a book and got a Nobel Prize for it. He says, let us assume that the economy has created productive efficiency and also has distributive efficiency. Let us assume सबको income दे दी हमने, fair distribution हो गया, government ने rich से लेके poor में बांट दिया, wealth tax, spending on education, everything they've done. Do you still think people want income in their life? He said, does income bring satisfaction to people or does income bring happiness to people? The answer here is no. Why? Because two things matter to people: how they generate the income and what they do with the income. Which means, do people have the choices to do whatever they want to do in their life? That means the choice to be or choice to do. इनकम के अलावा भी बहुत चीजें हैं जमाने में जो लोगों को चाहिए. It could be political freedom, I want to enjoy or I want to contest elections. It could be social equity, that I want respect for my own identity no matter what particular group I belong to. It could be I enjoy leisure. It could be I want education, I want healthcare, not to do something just for the sake of it. This concept which said you have to expand the choices of people, that is expand the level of freedom which people have so that they have a reason to value their life. Freedom and choice expansion. This is what they said is the concept of human development. So economic development is considered with improving only one factor, income production and income distribution. Human development says income is only one part of your life. Income is only one choice. There are other choices in life also, and those choices have no end. Whatever you want to be, whatever you want to do, does the society give you that choice or freedom? This is what is the concept of human development. Is this clear? So economic development measures what? How it is produced, and second, what does it measure? How production is happening, that means from what sectors? Agriculture, manufacturing, services. And second, how income is distributed. If the economy will have poverty, inequality, and unemployment, it is not developed. This is economic development. Sorry. But what is human development? That is expansion of all choices. Maximum questions in UPSC exams apart from the civil service exam has highest questions from this topic of human development. Human geography का second chapter है human development. उसकी definition से लेकर measurement से लेकर indicator से लेकर dimensions, everything has been asked multiple times. This is a question which I feel हर दूसरे साल ये CDS, NDA सब exams में पूछते हैं. अभी तक यहाँ नहीं पूछा है. What they have instead done is, in mains last year they asked, HDI, inequality adjusted HDI, is an indicator for India's development. Which indicator is better and why? So they've asked a mains question last year, full-fledged, first question in the GS3 paper on HDI and IHDI. You don't understand inequality, you don't understand human development, you're never going to solve that question. Now there is a chance that development measurement, since there is a lot of talk also that GDP is not giving benefits, again the context is we should move beyond GDP. So for that you need to know development and measurement. I'll give you the indicators. I've prepared a roughly 20-25 indicators, broadly which you should have an idea of. Indicators and what they are trying to measure. This is all choices. One more thing here, what are the indicators of or dimensions of human development? This dimension they have asked number of times in other exams. Human development dimension says if you have to increase the choices of people, the first thing you have to do is you have to build in capability or productivity in people. You have to make them capable so that they understand the world. You give them capability, and productivity means you have to add to their human capital. What is human capital? This also they have asked in 2018. What is human capital? Human capital is skill, knowledge, and healthcare which people invest in and accumulate throughout their lives so that they can act as productive members of the society. Health, education, and skills which you accumulate over a period of time so that you can become a productive member of the society. What you do with that productivity, that's something you can decide. ग्रोथ डेवलपमेंट, इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट कहते हैं इस प्रोडक्टिविटी का एक एंड गोल होना चाहिए कि आउटपुट प्रोड्यूस करें ये ज्यादा. ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट से प्रोडक्टिव होना ही अपने आप में एक एंड है. ह्यूमन बीइंग्स आर नॉट अ मीन्स टू एन एंड. Human beings are an end in themselves. Give them all of this so that they are productive without having an end goal. Human beings itself are an end. It's a very fun, brilliant concept which he built. Second thing he said, this particular capability or productivity should be equitably distributed. Equitable means people should not be discriminated on the basis of caste, gender, religion and region. This is the concept which UPSC asked in mains, is the concept of intra-generational equity. Just because you're born in Bihar doesn't mean your productivity will be different from a person born in Maharashtra or Tamil Nadu. In same child के same age को same benefits होने चाहिए, same capability होनी चाहिए. That said, people who are on the same level should get same treatment, but people who are below should get preferential treatment. This is what is the meaning of intra-generational. Horizontal equity, like to be treated like. Vertical equity, the people who are below should get higher advantages. This is intergenerational equity. Third thing they talked about was you have to create sustainability. That means present generation's choices should not compromise the choices of future generation. This is the concept of intergenerational equity across generations. Fourth thing which they explained, people have productivity, people have opportunities, people should also be given the agency to decide for themselves. This is decision making power. Who decides? You know, you've been given the opportunity, no one else will decide for you, you will decide for your own self. Fifth, there should be cooperation in the society. Without mutual trust and networking, people cannot grow. This is what they called as the concept of social capital. The networking, the trust and the cooperation which people show in the society. And finally, they said the sense of security. Ye 6 component is what they said is the dimensions, pillars or components of human development. So the paradigms of development, if you see how they have shifted, first paradigm was, with this you will understand why we measure and what we measure. Different institutions measuring different things. First paradigm of development is productive and organizational efficiency. Technology, resource के barrier को तोड़ना है, better produce करना है. But this production better doesn't mean distribution better. So the next step was production plus distribution. For this, the government will have to take part and will have to redistribute. Without government redistribution, distribution fair नहीं हो सकता until and unless you have some sort of socialism. But socialism की problem है, फिर production की problem बन जाएगी. So if market से productive efficiency you are bringing, market distribution will never be fair. Profits will be more than wages, people will have concentration. वो ठीक होगा सिर्फ. That means this paradigm has to solve the problem of poverty, inequality and unemployment. Finally, Amartya Sen said, income is only one component. What is important is all choices. so that people have a reason to value the life they are living. This is economic development. This is, last year UPSC asked a question, last to last year in paper 1, why has human development lagged economic development in India? Without understanding these meanings, those questions are not being attempted. This year, the relevance why we are discussing, because we have to move beyond GDP in order to talk about development. And second, they've also added a question in the mains last year on human development and the indicators. So this is a potential question that indicators can be tested. This is why this development concept. Now what are the indicators here? I hope the meaning of development makes sense. Now you understand quality kahan aaya. Choice is quality. Environment, water, political freedom, social equality, human rights, all of this is quality. Why? Because expansion of choices. This 6. Now what are the different indicators to make sense of this? First, you've heard of Human Development Index. Now what is this Human Development Index? How did they come from a very big indicator to a smaller indicator? What they did was, the concept of human development, they said, was a concept which said you have to expand all choices. But out of all choices, how do I measure and how do I see the progress of a society on human development? Because defining all choices and measuring all choices itself is difficult. So they said, out of all choices, 3 choices are essential. What is the essential choices? The ability to live a long and healthy life. The second choice they said is ability to acquire knowledge. And the third thing they said is ability to enjoy a decent standard of living. So the human development as a concept said, not all choices I can measure, but there are 3 essential which every society should provide to its individuals. The 3 choices being long and healthy life, ability to acquire knowledge, and decent standard of living. Question is, how do I measure this? What is the indicator I draw? For long and healthy life, I have drawn an indicator that is life expectancy at birth. For education, I have mean years, average years of schooling and expected years of schooling. And for income, I have gross national income per capita. Is this making sense? Now do you realize how these development indicators will have a problem? Why? Because first they'll have to tell what they are measuring, what is essential. Because definition is quite broad. Second problem is, essential के बाद आपने बोल तो दिया long healthy life, what are the indicators you're going to choose? Because long and healthy life can be measured through IMR, MMR, so many different indicators to measure health. This is why the question paper will focus on dimensions and इसीलिए वो लास्ट ईयर का क्वेश्चन था HDI और inequality adjusted HDI. Because inequality adjusted HDI says, if HDI is this, all of these figures I am calculating an average. Say for example, life expectancy at birth in India is 72 years, just an example. Do you believe that everyone has 72 years which they are living? That means all these 3 indicators have inequality. Now, is an average indicator better for India or inequality adjusted HDI is better for India? This is 150 word answer which you have to write in 10 marks. Is it making sense? First, how inequality, or first, most of the questions of growth and development of mains is inequality centered. The framing is such that it's very difficult to catch के बात किसकी हो रही है. तो indicators की बात नहीं हो रही थी वहां पर. HD और IHD explain नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि इसकी methodology तो बहुत complex है. But what you have to center is inequality and concept of dimensions पे बात करनी थी. Empowerment के dimension पे, equity के dimension पे, sustainability के dimension पे. There you would have discussed the concept of inequality better. Is it making sense? HDI. Then the another is multidimensional poverty index. Now you understand why in development we measure multidimensional poverty index. This is an index released by UNDP plus Oxford Poverty Institute. It measures what? What are the mechanisms for measuring poverty? How do we measure poverty in the country? I'll tell you these three methods so that these three indicators make sense. How is poverty measured? Anyone knows what is poverty first? Poverty is not a very important concept. पूरे पिछले 15 साल में एक question आया poverty पे कि why there should be different state specific poverty line. What is important is poverty measurement in development indicators. So one of the indicators in 2016 that asked global hunger index. What are the indicators for global hunger index? Indicators wise the question has relevance, otherwise poverty is not that relevant. Anyhow, what is poverty? What do you mean by expenditure? $3 क्यों बोला? ट्रांसलेशन मेरे को पता है, मैं ये पूछ रहा हूँ $3 नंबर कहाँ से आया? जैसे 3 से डॉलर से पहले 2.1 था, उससे पहले 1.9 था, ये नंबर्स कहाँ से आ रहे हैं? I understand what you're trying to say. The idea of poverty is that poverty is a concept of deprivation. But first you'll have to define deprivation of what. So when deprivation of what you are saying, or in fact deprivation is socially perceived on you perceived something to be basic, and then when someone did not have that basic, you called them poor. Everyone can have its own perception of what is basic. You can say basic is food, clothing and shelter. You can say food, clothing, shelter plus a TV. Food, clothing, shelter, TV and an internet. Food, clothing, shelter also have variety. How much food, how much clothes, how much shelter, how much education, how much conveyance. In order to give this socially perceived basic needs a concrete idea, we have certain experts who define the needs, and in order to define the needs, they tell what goods and services will fulfill the needs. I told the needs: clothes, shelter and housing. Shelter, housing same, clothes, shelter, housing or food. That means I defined the needs. I will define what are the goods and services. This goods and services is what is called as poverty line. This poverty line basket, if I want to ask what is the minimum income to earn this or what is the minimum expenditure to be earned this, it could be both. This is what is called as poverty line. Measuring income or using income to find out goods and services is still difficult. We use the variable of World Bank says $3. That means World Bank ने needs define किए होंगे. World Bank ने basket का उन्होंने value बोला $3 every day you'll have to spend on this. So that means I need deprivation on basic needs coming through my expenditure. If anyone is earning less than this expenditure, this is what is called as below poverty line, and this particular number can tell me out of the total population there would be some population who are living below poverty line. This is what is called as head count ratio or poverty ratio. Below this there could be some people who are here and some people who are here, some people who are here. Everyone has a different life. How do I know how much poor they are? Those who are poor below the poverty line. The intensity of poverty would be based on what is the average gap people have. So first I measure the number of poor. Second, I measure the average gap. This is called as intensity of poverty. Intensity is important because MPI intensity measure करता है. Third, when I know what is the average gap, let us assume the average gap of poverty line is 25. But the person who has a gap of 50 is different from the person who has a gap of 30. Is different from a person who has a gap of 10. That means average is just telling me the average experience below poverty line. It's not telling me what exactly is the severity of poverty line. Severity means if an individual is farther away, he should be given more weight as compared to someone who is less. Right now when I calculated average, everyone had an equal weight. In order to measure severity, this is what is called as squared poverty gap index. This is called as poverty gap index. which measures the average gap, squared poverty index, which is also called as the Amartya Sen P index. He measured the inequality in the poverty, which we call as severity. What is squared? जब हम एवरेज कैलकुलेट कर रहे हैं, जिसका जितना ज्यादा है उसको स्क्वायर कर दो, तो ऑटोमेटिकली वेट बढ़ गया. This is what is head count ratio, intensity and severity. What is the problem with this approach? What is the problem with this approach? That this approach is highly unidimensional in nature, that it is only talking about deprivation of people on expenditure. Expenditure has to be done. You are saying the expenditure of the people should be 100 rupees per day. This expenditure should be done on certain goods and services which are treated as basic. That means it's highly unidimensional. What about people having access to education? What about people having access to healthcare? What about people having access to LPG, internet? That means I need to know what is the deprivation on different indicators. For this, the Oxford Institute along with UNDP created multidimensional poverty index. So one way of doing it is measuring consumption expenditure, and second way of doing is measuring deprivation across different indicators. How do we do that? Multidimensional poverty index has 3 broader dimensions, and this 3 dimensions has 10 indicators. Every indicator I will tell you what is the minimum threshold. Once I tell you the minimum threshold, a broader idea is if someone who is out of the 10 indicators is deprived on 3 or more indicators, this will be called as multidimensional poor. Idea वैसे 3 indicator का नहीं होता. There is an MPS score for which there is a technology called the alkaline Foster technology. They calculate through a weighted approach, and if the score is 33% or more, which a general interpretation is 3 or more indicators you are deprived, you will be poor. How does this indicator also measure intensity? Now, those people who are poor, their deprivation would not be the same. Person A is poor because he is deprived on 4. Person B is poor, deprived on 5. C is poor, he is deprived on 3. D is deprived on 7. That means everyone has a different deprivation when they are classified as poor. How do I measure the intensity? I measure below the poverty line, that is those who are MPI poor, what is their average deprivation. Average deprivation is what tells me the intensity of poverty. MPI poor is more than 3 indicators, but those people who are more than 3 can have different deprivation. The average deprivation tells me the intensity. Number multiplied by intensity is what is called as the multidimensional poverty score. So poverty line basic is consumption होना चाहिए उससे कम. But consumption is unilateral or unidimensional. I don't know about the other aspects of his life. Does he have electricity? Does he have LPG? Does he have bank account? Does he have sanitation, clean sanitation or not? For that, the Oxford Institute along with UNDP created MPI. 2 things there. More than 33% score, MPI poor. More than 33 could be 40%, could be 50%, could be 60. So average क्या है? वो intensity है. Multiplied number by intensity, we get what is the MPI poor. Now World Bank interestingly did one thing here. Problem with these indicators is you miss the broader poverty of people. ये deprivation based poverty है. Whether people have crossed poverty or not, you will never know here. Because they can solve 2 indicators. Let us assume you solve 3 indicators and there is only 1 indicator which are deprived. That means he has access to clean sanitation, he has LPG, he has electricity. But what if he does not have food to eat? What if his consumption expenditure is still low? That means he could still be poor even if he has those indicators. So that means I will not know if people have come out of poverty or not. So what the World Bank did, World Bank created a multi-dimensional poverty measure which has a combination of poverty line and multi-dimensional poverty index. The economic survey mentioned this year that India has improved on World Bank multi-dimensional poverty. Poverty line and a combination of this where they have 3 indicators. They have picked 2 deprivation indicators from multi-dimensional poverty and 1 deprivation indicator of poverty line. कि $3 से कम होगा वो एक indicator होगा, 2 indicators यहाँ से ले लिए. This is what is called as multi-dimensional poverty measure of the World Bank. This MPI was UNDP along with Oxford Institute for the Poverty and the Human Development Initiative. Now see the facts which they have used, the same concept which I just explained. Multidimensional Poverty Index, health, nutrition and child mortality, education, years of schooling, school attendance, living standards, it has different indicators. It is a weighted average. This is multidimensional poverty measure of World Bank. I told you combination of poverty line with multidimensional. Poverty line is monetary daily consumption or income less than $3, but education and access to basic infrastructure. So it's a combination of poverty line with deprivation based indicators. This is an important concept. They have not yet tested this. This can be a potential question. And it's a weighted indicator where poverty line here is 1/3, rest is 1/6, and infrastructure is 1/9. It's not similar to what MPI is. MPI is health, education and living standard. MPM has monetary, education and access to basic infrastructure. This is India's multidimensional poverty index. India's multidimensional poverty index, again these two bodies UNDP and OPHI have helped create this, but there are difference in indicators. Dimension same hai, indicators दो फर्क है. Health में we have added maternal health, standard of living we have added bank account. How do we collect data on this? The multidimensional poverty index is constructed in India using what baseline data? In order to calculate deprivation, it is drawn from National Family Health Surveys. The previous one was NFHS 4, this is NFHS 5. Comparison also was shown this year. Then there are two gender inequality measures given by UNDP itself. One is Gender Development Index. This is similar to HDI. Difference is it calculates gender ratios male versus female. So on the same indicator of life expectancy, male versus female HDI, mean plus expected year, estimated earned income, female versus male. Another indicator which is different is Gender Inequality Index. ये completely different है. For this they have reproductive health, empowerment and labor market. Indicators and dimensions are completely different. For inequality index, reproductive health can be checked from maternal mortality and adolescent birth rate. So dimensions तीन हैं. Reproductive health, empowerment and labor market, whereas the dimensions, the indicators used to measure this dimension, maternal mortality, adolescent birth rate, empowerment is parliamentary seats and secondary education, labor market is labor force participation. Gender Inequality Index by UNDP. Three index which are correlated is HDI, IHDI and GDI. HDI is the average, inequality adjusted HDI is IHDI and gender inequality adjusted HDI is GDI. Female versus male. Then 17 goals for SDG. This is also most of the papers in UPSC they are asking these. Different goals and different, out of the four, which of the following are SDG goals. Not exactly the number, but broader 17 you should have an idea. Again by UNDP. Economic indicators, you have GDP and GNI, this is which we have discussed. Gini coefficient. Gini coefficient, you know what it measures? Gini coefficient is about inequality. I have given the information also. This is what is the inequality. From Lorentz curve is what we define the Gini coefficient. How exactly this is done? The fraction of all income, fraction of population. If 20% of the income is with 20% of the people, that means I am on the equal line. If 20% poorest 20% of the population earn only 4% of the income, 20 यहाँ है और 4 यहाँ है, तो जितना ज़्यादा इधर जाता जाएगा उतना inequality बढ़ रहा है. How do we calculate Gini coefficient? Area between these two lines divided by the total area. This is the area between these two lines, this is A divided upon A plus B, पूरे area का. This is how the Gini coefficient is A upon A plus B, area between equality line, area under the total Lorentz curve. A है, B ये है, तो A upon A plus B. Is this clear? Lorentz curve and Gini coefficient. Other indicators, you have Human Capital Index, which is based on future work productivity, survival, education, quality and health. Human Capital Index is by World Bank. Poverty head count, this was $3, which we discussed, poverty line. Other health indicators, life expectancy. UPSC asked a question, what do you mean by total fertility rate? 2 साल पहले. So the basic terms of development indicators is IMR, life expectancy, MMR, all of these things you should know. So life expectancy, average years a newborn child is expected to live. Infant mortality, death 1 per 1,000 live birth. And maternal mortality, maternal deaths per 1 lakh birth. 1,000 or 1 lakh mein hi there could be question. Disability adjusted years of life lost, years of life lived with disability. This is a famous indicator used to measure the well-being of a population. The disability adjusted life years, which is years of life lost plus years lived with disability. Global Hunger Index. Global Hunger Index was asked in 2016. They had asked what are the indicators in Global Hunger Index. There are 4 indicators. They are undernourishment, child stunting, wasting and mortality. Wasting is age weight, stunting is age height. Age appropriate height is stunting, age appropriate weight this wasting. Education indicators, literacy rate, enrollment rates is the basic ones. This is something which is prominently measured. OECD conducts a test of different schools in order to measure the quality of education, which is called as the PISA ratings. This is a very famous program which measures the performance of education standards in different schools. This is Program for International Student Assessment done by OECD. Recently, Vietnam is performing very well on this PISA ratings. Governance and transparency, we have Corruption Perception Index, Transparency International, Press Freedom Index, Reporters Without Borders, Fragile States, Democracy Index, Intelligence Economic Unit. Environmental Performance Index, Yale and Columbia, I think this was asked also one of the years. Carbon emissions per capita, access to clean water, USF and WHO and UNICEF. Well-being, this is something which was asked in many of the papers, World Happiness Report. The Sustainability Development Initiative of UN. ये उन्होंने ही बनाया था Happiness Index, Bhutan. Happy Planet, New Economics Foundation. This is something which can be asked. This is in fact can be used in paper GS3 also. It's the Inclusive Development Index prepared by World Economic Forum, where they use growth and development, 4 indicators, inclusion indicators and intergenerational equity indicators. Once you understand the broader idea of human development, these indicators, what dimensions they're using is not a problem. Because everyone has narrowed down its essentials and narrowed down how they will measure the essentials. You just need to know 3 things. Who's publishing, what essential they have narrowed down to, and what indicators they use to measure it. For example, when UNDP said all choices को narrow down किया essential पे, education, health and living standard. How do I measure education, health and living standard? Life expectancy, mean years of school and average expected years of schooling. And third was GNI per capita. इन्होंने कहाँ पे inclusion बोला? Median household income, Gini coefficient, poverty rate, wealth inequality. This is how I'm measuring the inequality, inclusion of the people. Global Innovation Index and Global Food Security, Economist Impact, and this was the WPI, the WIPO body of UN. Cornell with INSEAD produces the Global Innovation Index. OECD Better Life Index is also mentioned. This is Economic Survey also has mentioned this number of times. Environment related, Ocean Health Index, water poverty. Same thing, what is essential and what is the other. Money we'll discuss in the next class. Next class, I'm going to talk about, so 3 classes if I require, 2 are planned already. Next class, I'm going to talk about 2 things. One is forms of money, that is CBDC, retail, wholesale. The second thing we'll talk about there is stable coins, RBI balance sheet, from where RBI earns money and how does RBI provide surplus. I'll give you a brief overview on the functions of RBI, because RBI is a very consistently asked body. Once functions of RBI is discussed, we'll talk about RBI regulations. There are 3 regulation changes which they have made recently. One, they made changes to priority sector lending last year. They made certain regulation changes for NBFCs and urban cooperative banks. So those regulation changes is what we'll discuss next. In the next class, that is will be Friday, we'll discuss about agriculture. Agriculture, cropping patterns and plus policy related issues. If there is some time, I'll give you an idea of schemes also. If there is more time, we can talk about industrial policy, and if there is no time, in the last class I'm going to give you a handout so that you can read about resources and trade related developments. This is the 50 unconventional topics which should actually be done from the newspapers. There's no conventional sources for this. Just like I related GDP growth and all these concepts, it's very difficult to find once you know what the GDP methodology is. इसका मतलब नहीं समझ आएगा, वो बहुत ज़्यादा पढ़ना पड़ेगा. Same thing will follow in rest of the 3 also. This, all of the information together, I'll upload it in the last class. Thank you.
The issue with most UPSC aspirants is not effort, it is foundation. A strong foundation means 3 things. Learn in the right sequence so subjects reinforce each other. Apply early through answer writing and testing. Correct continuously through proper diagnosis and feedback. This is what the GS Foundation course at Vision IAS is built around. Connected GS coverage, not isolated subjects. Early writing and testing, not last-minute panic. Diagnostic test analysis with clear corrective steps. Current affairs organized into usable themes for prelims and mains. Regular mentorship to prevent drift. Effort is common, structure is rare. If you are serious about UPSC, start by getting the foundation right. Upcoming classroom batches: Karol Bagh 9 March 11 am, 13 March 8 am and 24th March 5 pm. And GTB Nagar batches for English 17 March 8 am, 25 March 6 pm. And for Hindi 16 March 11 am. For more details, visit our website or call us on the given numbers.
यूपीएससी 2027 का लक्ष्य जितना बड़ा है उसे पाने की योजना भी उतनी ही स्पष्ट और संगठित होनी चाहिए। विजन आईएएस लेकर आया है क्लासरूम फाउंडेशन कोर्स 2027 के 12 से 14 महीनों का एक ऐसा सुव्यवस्थित कार्यक्रम है जहां आपकी तैयारी एक अनुशासित और वैज्ञानिक ढांचे में आगे बढ़ती है। यहाँ क्लासरूम लर्निंग के साथ साथ आपको मिलता है लाइव और रिकॉर्डेड सेशंस का विकल्प, जिसे आप अपने व्यक्तिगत ऑनलाइन पोर्टल के माध्यम से कभी भी और कहीं भी एक्सेस कर सकते हैं। तैयारी के सफर को और भी प्रभावी बनाती है हमारी व्यक्तिगत क्लासरूम मेंटरिंग। हमारे एक्सपर्ट मेंटर्स नियमित मार्गदर्शन और स्मार्ट स्टडी मैनेजमेंट के जरिए आपकी तैयारी को एक सही दिशा और गति प्रदान करते हैं। शैक्षणिक दृष्टिकोण से देखें तो यह कोर्स मुख्य परीक्षा के सामान्य अध्ययन के चारों प्रश्न पत्रों, सीसेट और निबंध का व्यापक कवरेज सुनिश्चित करता है। विषयों की समसामयिक समझ विकसित करने के लिए मासिक करंट अफेयर्स मैगजीन और रिवीजन क्लासेस के साथ साथ पीटी 365 और मेंस 365 की विशेष कक्षाएं भी इस कार्यक्रम का अनिवार्य हिस्सा हैं, ताकि स्टैटिक और करंट अफेयर्स के बीच एक सटीक संतुलन बना रहे। तैयारी की गहराई मापने के लिए निरंतर अभ्यास अनिवार्य है, इसलिए डेली असाइनमेंट्स और साप्ताहिक मिनी टेस्ट के साथ साथ मासिक प्रीलिम्स और मेंस टेस्ट के माध्यम से आपकी प्रगति का निरंतर आकलन किया जाता है। इस कार्यक्रम की शक्ति है हमारी प्रतिष्ठित ऑल इंडिया टेस्ट सीरीज, जिसमें प्रीलिम्स के 35, मेंस के 30, सीसेट के 25 और निबंध के 5 टेस्ट का समावेश है। साथ ही संधान पोर्टल पर 25,000 से अधिक प्रश्नों का विशाल संग्रह आपके अभ्यास और विश्लेषण को और भी सुदृढ़ बनाता है। अब समय है अपनी मेहनत को एक मजबूत, संरचित और निरंतर प्रक्रिया में ढालने का। विजन आईएएस के साथ जुड़ें और यूपीएससी 2027 की अपनी सफलता की राह को एक स्पष्ट दिशा दें।
Prelims is in 3 months. This is where preparation shifts, not from studying to stopping, but from expanding to consolidating. At this stage, what matters most is strengthening core areas, fixing weak zones, analyzing mistakes deeply, stabilizing mock scores, refining your attempt strategy. That is exactly where the Lakshya Prelims Mentoring Program plays a decisive role, offering structured direction, performance correction, and continuous guidance when execution matters the most. Starting from 23rd February, Lakshya supports this critical phase with a focused revision roadmap, personalized tests and competitive quizzes, 25,000 plus curated Sandhan questions, data-driven performance analytics, mentor guidance till the exam. Lakshya is not about studying more, it's about executing better with expert guidance. To know more or register, visit our website or call us on the given numbers. Are you ready to face prelims head on? Because prelims is not just about knowledge, it's about performance under pressure. That's where Abhyas, the All India Prelims, GS plus CSAT mock test comes in. Designed as a true exam simulation, Abhyas recreates the real UPSC. Prelims experience the same pattern, the same time constraints, and the same intensity. It places you in a national arena, competing with aspirants across India, backed by an all-India ranking that reveals your true standing. Attempted by 1 in 3 top 50 rankers, Abhyas has become a trusted benchmark for serious aspirants. With detailed post-test analysis, live discussions, and complete syllabus coverage in both English and Hindi, it ensures your preparation is not just extensive but exam-ready. 3 full-length offline simulations will be conducted across 100 plus cities on 5th April, 19th April, and 10th May. From 9:30 am to 11:30 am for General Studies, that is paper 1, and 2:30 pm to 4:30 pm for CSAT, that's paper 2. Challenge your preparation, test your performance. For more information or register, visit our website or call us on the given number.
All serious aspirants are able to solve polity, economy and geography questions in the prelims. But when it comes to ancient and medieval history and art and culture, everyone stands on the same platform. Whether you are a fresher or a repeater, attempts don't matter here. Most aspirants end up guessing answers, relying on vague recall and finally getting stuck in a dicey zone near the cutoff. And it is exactly here where margins matter, that marks are lost or gained. To create a clear edge over the cutoff, Vision IAS Prelims Speed Up is for you. The real challenge with history and culture is not effort but direction. Multiple sources, overlapping facts, confusing timelines and factual overload make these subjects risky. UPSC further complicates things by framing indirect elimination-based questions where partial knowledge often backfires. As a result, even well-prepared aspirants hesitate at crucial moments. Prelims Speed Up is designed as a 20-day last-mile score booster to solve this exact problem. Instead of broad coverage, the program focuses only on high-grade areas that UPSC repeatedly asks in ancient history, medieval history, and art and culture. The emphasis is on conceptual clarity, chronology, and intelligent linkage, so facts finally start making sense together. With concept-driven classes, the course tells you what to remember, what to ignore, and how to apply. Structured daily practice and tests train your mind for elimination, helping you avoid traps and guess less. The smart source consolidated content removes the burden of multiple books and speeds up the revision. In just 20 focus classes for ancient and medieval history and art and culture, Prelims Speed Up converts static confusion into scoring confidence. If you want to move from cutoff anxiety to cutoff safety in Prelims 2026, this program gives you that decisive edge. Join today to get this edge.